Welcome to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. Today, we're going to be talking about the children's book business. We got Kara Peterson with me today, who has created a new app and a book centered around fun why stories. And so she'll be sharing with us today the tale of the possum, her first creation here, and the app that goes along with that. So I'll let her explain all that to us today. Kara, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Jamie.
So fun why stories and children's books and apps. What made you get into this business?
I love to write. I have always loved to write, and I love to research. And I was a school teacher, and I stayed home with my two children. At the time, I only had one, and he was asking why all of the time. And so I started looking at how other cultures were answering the question of why.
You know, I put my mom through a rough time because I was always asking why too. I asked some deep questions. I was like a philosopher when I was a kid, just trying to come up with some of these answers to things. And I can't imagine just being a kid again and asking some of the questions in today's age with all this access to information that children have today. But, you know, talk to us though about this book then. You know, your first book here is about a possum. Tell us about this.
Well, so first I'll start with the why. The Possum's Tale was based, it's an adaptation from the Cherokee legend. And the Cherokee legend talks about why the possum has a different tail than most of the other creatures in the forest. And what they did was there's a lot of things that you should do as a person and the way you should act as a person. And that's not fun to hear. It's not fun to be lectured. It's not fun to be nagged. It's not fun for your parents to do the finger shake. And nobody wants to hear it. But we all love to hear stories, and we like to gather around the campfire. And this also gives a really great role to our elders to do that nighttime routine where they come in the evening and they sit down and they tell the story. These stories have definite lessons, and they tell us how we should behave and what is right and what is wrong and what is good and what is not good and how to be in a group of people. And that is what the Possum's Tale talks about in these lessons, but there's no finger wagging and there's no lecturing and there's no nagging. It's just a really great story. And the kids go, wow, I don't know if I really want to be a rabbit or a possum at the end of that story.
Was this particular tale inspired by a specific question that your son asked of you?
No, and it's funny that you say that you were a very inquisitive child as well. I loved that my kids asked a lot of questions. And sometimes I would hear mom say, oh my gosh, my child is just beating me down with whys. And I felt that your kids that are always asking why are your really smart kids because they're noticing there's something in the world to ask a question about. So I think as parents, we should always encourage that inquisition, that why factor, because those are our children saying, hey, something is up. You know, I really want to know about that. And the more we encourage that, the more clever I feel our children become. So my children did not notice a possum. We did not have a possum. We had moved from Oregon, where there are a lot of those. So instead, I just started paying attention to what was going on. And then I filled my need. I needed some interaction in my own brain and that researching to go on. And so when my kids were napping or when they had their downtime, I would go and I would do my own research, and I found many stories. I have about 7 lined up. And one of them was The Possum's Tale, and that just happens to be the one that I started with due to the fact that currently we have so many issues in our schools of bullying and self-esteem and injustice and conflict resolution. And this book addresses those in a very non-threatening way.
Now, you've associated an app with this book too, soon to be released, but explain how the app ties to the book.
Well, it's interesting how the app even came about. So when I was developing my books 15, 20 years ago, an app never was even on my radar. And I never really planned on publishing my books until I really liked how they came. They're all rhyming and metered format, and I really wanted to see them come to life with illustrations because a children's book is not a book without those pictures. Those
Right.
pictures are tantamount. And so I was having coffee with a girlfriend, and I noticed that next to us, there were these two young moms, and one of them had a 3-year-old child. She gave that child her smartphone, and that kid walked all over the coffee shop and was opening her farm app and hitting the pig, and the pig was doing the oink oink and hitting the cow and doing the moo moo. And this child was learning and having so much fun. And I thought, wow, books are not where it's at anymore. And I was an English teacher, so I was understruck and a little disappointed. But at the same time, I saw an opportunity to make my book an app, because my book is a higher reading level because it's all poetry format. And now, if I could make it an app, I could have a read to me function, I could have early word recognition. So the teacher in me saw so many opportunities to make this amazing. And so I had a really great time inventing games, because you cannot have an app that doesn't have games. That's just an ebook.
Right.
So I had so much fun exploring a whole new opportunity that wasn't available to me 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it's important to recognize your book is not just it's not an ebook. This is a book that's unlike other children's books out there on the marketplace. Explain how it differs from a traditional children's book.
The actual book?
Yes.
The actual book it's a limited edition. So there's only 1,000. So most books out there are trying to do mass distribution. I only have 1,000 to give. So that's one thing. Also, I wanted to do it my way, special. I was really excited about it. And I'm a throwback. I'm older. I remember the Franklin Library books that came in the mail. And they were gorgeous, and they were faux leather, and they felt good, and they had gold foil, and they had that silk page when you opened them. That's what I created. So when you hold my book, you feel an experience. And it is that faux leather and gold foil. And then you open it, and you have that nice page. And then in the illustrations, there's 51 hidden objects within the book. So technically, you can play the game that is in the app in the book. It's more difficult. It's definitely for that child who wants a challenge. You want a good road trip book, you give them that, because they're not going to solve it in 2 hours. But it is very, very challenging and rewarding. And children of different ages, you can have a 6-year-old and an 11-year-old looking at the book, trying to find those hidden objects, and they both enjoy it.
Now the app soon to be launched, available on the iOS operating system and the Android operating system. First off, you have a launch coming up on September 26th. Talk to us about this.
Well, both of them are available now, but I'm doing my official launch because you have to throw a party when you work so hard. And so I'm throwing myself a party, and my party is going to be online on Facebook, and I'm doing a virtual mastermind for moms and doggy moms, because I am having 6 other experts online with me. And I have the canine expert, and she's going to tell you all about everything you need to know to help dogs. And I have every single thing I felt a mother or parent would need in their life, organization, all kinds of things. And that's what my launch is going to be, September 26th. And of course, I will be offering the app and the book and the coloring book, and I have all kinds of products. And that is my party online.
Now, can somebody get the app and not have the book and still benefit from the app?
The app is what it was designed for. So absolutely. The book is much more difficult to do on your own. And for a limited time, anybody who buys the book gets the app as well. So, because I have these apps that I'm freely giving out as long as I have them. So as people buy the book, they just have to let me know, and I send them the app as well.
Okay, so they got to buy the book, and then they get the link to the app. So they're not going to be able to search for the app in the App Store like other apps. Am I getting that right?
No. The app is a standalone product.
Okay, so how do they find that then? Okay, what do they need to search for in the App Store to find the app?
The Possum's Tail.
The Possum's
Tale.
The Possum's Tail. So look for that in the iOS and the Android operating system platforms. I perused it briefly before the show. Very interactive, very fun app. Very definitely centered on learning and education for our young minds. Now, your target audience is the mother, though. Let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish here. Are you trying to build a series of why books that are going to be kind of sought after for education from our mothers?
I have a lot of goals. So immediately with my moms, my goal was I was addressing the mom who I felt was like me. And that was that mom who was hanging on, doing survival, trying to do the good foods, going to sports, doing the homework, trying to bathe the kids at night, doing all those things. And at night, you're exhausted and you're pulling your hair out. And then you're told if you don't read to your kids, your children will be illiterate, kind of thing. I mean, every single thing you're hearing from society is more and more pressure. And so, this book you can read to both kids. You get to do one book at night, two kids, and you're done. And so, I was trying to engage that mother who I'm saying, you know what? It's okay. Your kids will be all right. And I get it.
Yeah, we
And so
definitely suffer from information overload. So many different sources telling everybody to do this, do that from a variety of different angles out there. And I can definitely believe that it's overwhelming for the mothers out there. I myself, still a single guy, haven't experienced that side of life just yet, but I've heard from plenty of mothers, including my own, about some of those difficulties out there. Let me take a quick break here. When we come back from the break, I'll be talking more with Kara Peterson about why she got into the children's writing book business, more about her educational background, and why she, again, decided to go off and begin writing books and creating apps to help educate our children. And learn more at funwhystories.com and take advantage of her upcoming event on the 26th. We'll speak a little bit more about that also when we come back from the break. You're listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. And welcome back to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. My guest today, Kara Peterson, author of the book, The Possum's Tale, also available as an app on your iOS and your Android smartphone. So be sure to check that out. A very fun and interactive educational device for our children. And learn more at funwhystories.com. So Kara, you were talking about, or I know you're talking about with me, you know, you're a teacher, you're teaching English, but you were feeling disconnected from your child. You're doing great in your career, but you felt you were lacking in your relationship with your children, and that led, you know, to the career in writing children's books. Can you elaborate on this, please?
Yeah, I was a great teacher. I loved my classroom. I loved teaching, and my husband and I decided that I wasn't giving what I needed to give at home because I was giving so much to my classroom, and that we would scrimp and put me at home as a stay-at-home mom so that I could give what I needed to give to the family. And at the time I had one son and my husband traveled. And so I really needed to be at home. So I stayed at home and I knew myself as a teacher. I considered myself a career woman and I didn't know how to do this. I didn't know how to be home. I felt very blessed that I was able to be at home, and I knew that my son needed me and I knew that my husband needed me. At the same time, I received a lot of goodness from teaching, and I didn't feel that at home. So I went through a very dark period, and it was hard for me. And sometimes that's hard for some women to hear because they don't get the opportunity to stay home. So they feel that in a way I'm I don't know, laughing at that.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be hard both ways.
Now you've left. Now since you're currently now a stay-at-home mother, focusing on your children's books. Was it difficult to leave the world of education and the classroom as an English teacher?
It was very difficult because I loved teaching every year. So my first year, I remember August rolled around, and I remember longing for when everybody else was planning the coordinated curriculum, and they were looking over their class lists, and they were doing their seating charts, and they were doing their bulletin boards. And for some people, this sounds so silly, but I was thinking, oh, I could welcome those students, and I know how to do this. And this is what jazzed me up. And instead, I was looking at nap schedules and feeding times and, you know, how to do interactive play with a 1.5-year-old. And that's all good. And that's all very important. But that wasn't where my mind was at the time. So I had to refocus. I had to reshift because I was doing something equally as important. I just didn't know how to do that. So I launched myself into being a mom, and I started writing. I started paying attention to what my child was doing. He was asking why. And I thought, that is a very good thing. I have an inquisitive child. What are other cultures doing? And so I started linking my head and sparking my brain by when he was down, I would research, or when he was down, I would write. And that way I was able to balance who I am because I was losing who I was and also be the mother he needed me to be.
As an English teacher, we've obviously come from, different, generations versus today's youth. Talk to me about what you saw in the classroom before you left the business, just in terms of how children were beginning to behave with regard to technology. Because you mentioned earlier the Franklin books that you had as a child, and today everything is online. It's hard to get them out from behind the technology. What did you see through the years with regard to the development of technology in our children?
Jamie, it's so interesting that you should say that because I left the classroom 21 years ago and I am still certified in Arizona. Honestly, I love teaching so much, I haven't been able to let it go. So I stay certified, I stay current. When I left, I had an Apple laptop or a desktop computer because they didn't have laptops.
Right.
And I had those floppy disks.
Yep.
And I was doing my computer grading on a floppy disk. So the technology had not advanced that much when I left. So children didn't have phones. They didn't have any of that when I left. I did see a progression with my children because when my oldest was in 7th or 8th grade, he was asking for smartphones. And so in a way, we are so blessed in our age group because we saw the advancement of so many things. Nobody had emails or Googles or any of those things.
Right.
And so the way teachers are teaching, if they're as old as I am, they have had to really adjust and see because going to the encyclopedia, remember those Franklin libraries, remembering all that, those are different ways of doing it. That isn't the card catalog. Most people don't even know what that is.
Right.
All of those things are non-existent. And if the teacher doesn't shift, then that teacher becomes prehistoric.
And you saw an opportunity there, like you said in that first segment, out with a girlfriend, seeing the child interacting on the smartphone or the tablet, and then you turned that into a business. How long after you saw that opportunity before you acted on it? Did you act on it immediately?
I was not ready to leave my family, quote unquote, okay, because I was still very, very much in the day-to-day with my family. And I knew that as soon as I became a writer full time, I was going to be obsessive like I was in my classroom. So what I did was I polished up and revised. I'm still the English teacher. You need to revise your writing. So I revised, got out that Possum's Tail, revised it. And then I found an illustrator and I put it in her hands. And she is the most amazing illustrator ever. And she took it and she worked with it. So I didn't get to it for another 6 months. But at that time, I told her there's going to be a book version and there's going to be an app version. So as soon as I saw that child, it clicked in me. This is how I'm going to answer the difference in interest level and reading level, because that app is going to bridge that gap so that my younger kids can hear my story and understand what it is.
Now, you have a background in English, teaching English. I love to write too. I consider myself a pretty good writer, but talk to us about what it's like to write a children's book versus a non-fictional essay, for instance, or a book that's meant for an adult. Is there another learning curve that you've got to learn to write for a child? To me, I look at a children's book, oh, this is simple writing. I could do this in a day. Explain that, please.
Jamie, I broke so many rules with my book. A children's book is supposed to be light and it's supposed to be happy. My book doesn't end happily. It breaks the cardinal rule. And the reason why is because it's based on a Cherokee legend about a lesson that's learned. And you can't learn that lesson if you tie it all up in a bow and you say, oh, but it was okay that he bullied and it was okay that this happened. That wasn't the reason that they taught that lesson. So usually, yes, in answer to your question, it is very, very different. It's every time you write for a different audience, as you know, you're going to write specifically for that audience. Children, and even my book is my picture book for older readers. It's for older readers because the illustrations are dark. There's not clean lines around the characters. There's very much fur lines. There's very detailed illustrations. Younger kids like more of primary type colors that look more of an animated type visual. They like that dark line around the bear, not the fur type. They like something that their eyes can grasp onto. My app is very much like that. You see the bear, you see the solid type color. He's more of an animated type. My book is much more for that older picture book reader where they're not supposed to like picture books anymore because they can read Harry Potter, but they're like, wow, I really like detailed pictures and I like finding hidden objects. And this is my beach read. I am the beach read for those 11, 10, 11, 12-year-olds.
At what age should a child then progress outside of the picture books into more adult style reading?
Oh, you've already skipped a huge category because you don't go from picture books to adult style reading.
Well, like the Harry Potter, for instance, is that something that somebody would read starting at like age 12 or 13?
I'm sorry, at what age?
Like 12 or 13?
Some of your kids do. Some of your kids go into it at 12 and 13. You have a category called early chapter books. So usually you go from your picture books to a little bit more thicker picture books, right? So there's a little more substance. And then you go into early chapter books. Those are your Junie B. Jones and your Geronimo Mouse books. And I mean, all of these thicker books, stories of the Droon mysteries or whatever, all of these books that are chapter books, but they're early chapter books. So there's very little words per chapter, or very little, amount per chapter. And then they graduate into a little bit harder early chapter, and then they eventually go to those Harry Potters.
Whatever happened to the Choose Your Own Adventure books? I remember those as a kid. Do you remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books?
And you know what? I am waiting for somebody to get brilliant and put that on an app.
Yeah.
Because that is a brilliant app application. And I have thought of those too. I had every Choose Your Own Adventure there was, Jamie. I loved those books.
I did too. That was a big hit when I was in grade school. And it surprises me I don't see those out on the marketplace. Or if they're out there, I'm not noticing them though. But you're right. That would make an excellent app. So hopefully, or somebody out there listening or watching may act on that. Just be sure to give Kara credit here though for giving you the idea and everything out there.
Well, I've thought of that many times. Somebody needs to light bulb that and I will buy that app. I want to Choose Your Own Adventure on an app.
We got a couple of minutes left. Real quick, let's go back through your event coming up on September 26th on Facebook. Let's talk about this.
On September 26th, we are going to go from 8 o'clock a.m. and that's Pacific Standard Time, I believe, until 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we are going to have different experts, and they're going to be talking about different topics. And we're going to have interaction. We're going to have giveaways, freebies, all kinds of exciting things going on. And I'm really excited. There's a link, I believe, in the show notes that will have the page, the Facebook group page. So just go to that page and we'll get you all signed up for it. And I can't wait to have it.
All right. Yeah, we'll have that in the show notes, the link for that Facebook event. Also, you can learn more at funwhystories.com and be sure to search out the app, again, the Possum's Tale, available on iOS and the Android operating systems. And be sure to look out for more Fun Why Stories as Kara begins to write more and more for them. So, Kara, thank you so much for being on the program with me today.
Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
You're quite welcome. New episodes of our program air each weekday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you'd like to come onto the program and share your story with us, visit pbsinterview.com for more information. You've been listening to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes show business.